House Republicans are possibly on the verge of making Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan one of the key players in the January 6th coup attempt, and a hardline MAGA extremist, the next Speaker of the House, even as Trump himself was just hit with his second gag order by a judge. For more on this, it's time for a closer look. House Republicans still don't have a speaker after 2 weeks of humiliating infighting chaos. So let's check in on their party's leader, the faraway frontrunner for the 2024 GOP nomination, Donald Trump. I mean, there's no way things could be going worse for him than they are for House Republicans, right?
Breaking news here in Washington. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan has issued a narrow gag order on former President Trump and the other co-defendants in his D.C. election case, prohibiting all parties from targeting special counsel Jack Smith, federal prosecutors, or court staff.
Judge Tanya Chutkan said from the bench that Mr. Trump is now prohibited from reposting any statements publicly targeting the special counsel, his staff, the judge's staff, or court personnel, and also witnesses to the extent that it involves their role in the case.
That's right. Trump is prohibited from posting statements about the special counsel, his staff, the judge's staff, witnesses. And here's where it gets worse for him. Windmills killing birds, windmills killing whales, windmills killing birds that come back to life and kill whales, toilets that don't flush, toilets that do flush, and toilets that flush louder than windmills killing killer whales that come back to life to kill birds. By the way, this is now Trump's second gag order after he was already slapped with one for a civil fraud trial in Manhattan. If he keeps getting hit with partial gag orders from all of his court cases, the social media posts are just going to look like this. Now, I don't need to tell you we live in turbulent times, and in times like these, you need leadership. Democrats have Joe Biden in the White House, Chuck Schumer in the Senate, and Hakeem Jeffries in the House. Say what you will about them, and there is plenty to criticize. But at least their status as leaders is stable. Now let's compare that to the GOP leadership. Likely 2024 nominee Donald Trump, whose current top 4 suggested Uber destinations are courthouses. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who can often be found buffering. And the Speaker of the House, which is currently held by interim Speaker Patrick McHenry, who, knowing the job isn't permanent, is banging every gavel like it's his last. Impossible to prepare yourself for it. The Republican speaker fight has been a roller coaster, and not a good one. I'm not talking King Dakar, where you're laughing with your buddies, screaming, "Oh my God, I'm gonna puke." I'm talking about one of those real old ones. The kinds they have at county fairs where the seatbelt looks like it came from an '84 Ford Escort, and you get strapped in by a dead-eyed 17-year-old who reminds you both to keep your hands inside the vehicle and to make peace with whatever God you pray to. And as you make the first climb, you look into the footwell and you see 3 loose screws and a human ankle bone. Or you think, oh my God, I'm gonna die. I'm gonna die listening to a Jason Aldean cover band. And if you do survive afterward, you check out the photo they took and you end up looking like this. Good news, you guys, good news. If we use that picture 2 more times, I get a free footlong at Subway. Bad news. It's their new Rudy sandwich, which is just 2 pieces of bread and a bunch of nuts. Now here's a quick recap of what's happened over the last 2 years. I'm sorry, I meant the last 2 weeks.
Kevin McCarthy practically daring hardline Republicans to come after him.
If somebody wants to make a motion against me, bring it.
To which Gaetz responded, just did.
He says he's coming for you. Can you survive?
Yes, I'll survive.
The Speaker of the House has been removed from his position.
Some House Republicans have been in contact with and have started an effort to draft former President Donald Trump to be the next Speaker.
A lot of people have been calling me that Speaker.
On Capitol Hill right now, we have breaking news. House Republicans have nominated Steve Scalise moments ago as their new Speaker.
I want to thank my House Republican colleagues for just designating me as the Speaker.
Just hours after being nominated to become the next Speaker of the House, Congressman Steve Scalise says he's dropping out of the race.
I'm withdrawing my name as a candidate for the Speaker designee.
Another round of votes have just been had, and now Jim Jordan is the new Republican nominee for Speaker.
Right now, it looks like the party's newest nominee, Representative Jim Jordan, get this, does not have enough votes from his own GOP colleagues to win the speakership.
I would call House Republicans a cluster, but a cluster implies some sense of unity. They're more like a scatter. I've seen More organized groups of seagulls fighting over a potato chip. Whoa, well, fellas, let's just cast our ballots in an orderly fashion, and whoever wins the most votes get Dorito. You gotta remind me to listen to that seagull tape before we do the show. Don't worry, Sal, I can do seagull. Oh. I swear to God, if they didn't have the house to work at, I'm not sure half these guys could find a house to live in. You just see a pack of feral Republicans wandering through the woods arguing about which hole to in. Hey, that's my hole. I found it first. Usually a political party trying to gain power in a democracy wants to project competence, even if they have to lie. But Republicans are so mad at each other, they're just going on TV every damn day telling American people, we suck.
Funding the government is part of our fundamental duty, and we can't even do that. So, and now here we are at the 11th hour with the clock ticking, and we can't even seat a speaker. Man, that says volumes. At first, it was somewhat comical. Now it's bordering on the absurd.
This is not responsible. We need to elect a speaker.
This is petty. This is petty, and I'm getting freaking tired of it.
People are looking for a perfect system. They shouldn't be looking at the U.S. House right now.
How does that make you guys look?
Makes us look like a bunch of idiots.
No, don't worry. You did already look like a bunch of idiots, literally. South Carolina Congresswoman Nancy Mace wore the A on her shirt for the Scarlet Letter, apparently not having read the book. Wyoming Congresswoman Harriet Hageman brought a lasso to a GOP meeting, hoping to finally catch one of them Duke boys. And George Santos wore a suit jacket over a fleece over a shirt and tie, a fashion crime more heinous than any of his actual crimes. Politicians spend millions every year taking out ads to convince people they should be in charge. Republicans are going on national TV every day for free telling people, for the love of God, do not put us in charge. You know how rare that is? That's like our cue card guy, Wally, saying he doesn't want a line in the show today. You sure, Wally? Because you do still get paid extra if you say a line.
Yeah.
Okay. But for real, though, bits aside, how would you solve this mess in Congress?
Well, so
doesn't count. The infighting has gotten so bad, one Republican member of Congress just came out and said what many have long suspected about a large portion of the Republican Party. They don't actually want to govern.
It's a tough scenario, but there are people in there that are honorably trying to get to the right place, and then there are people in there, as you know, that like to go on the TV and are not necessarily negotiating for anything other than TV time.
these guys want to be in the minority. That's exact. I think they would prefer that because they can just vote no and yell and scream all the time.
Yes, that's the whole party in a nutshell right there. They were Little League parents, screaming at the umpire through the chain link fence, drunk on thermos wine at 8:30 a.m. on a Saturday. But now they're the umpire, and it's a lot harder to be the umpire. You have to crouch for 3 hours, keep track of balls and strikes. Then every now and then this happens.
It's the 0-1. Oh, no, I got the umpire.
Don't worry, the umpire didn't die. He just wanted to. Can we say what his face looked like under the mask? Republicans like yelling and screaming so much more than governing. They looked across the country at all 300 million Americans, picked the loudest screamer and said, yeah, let's make that guy the leader of our party. A guy who screams so much, he's now under 2 gag orders and still won't shut the hell up. The guy who does all his press conferences right next to a 747 just to prove he can out-yell a jet engine. But that really is the truth right there. Republicans are not a serious governing party because they don't have a serious governing agenda. They don't even have serious options. With each failed attempt to pick a speaker, Republicans don't get together and say we need to do better. They say we need to do worse. And nothing exemplifies that more than the fact Republicans have moved on to Ohio Congressman Jim Jordan, a MAGA extremist who tried to overturn the 2020 election and played a key role in the January 6th coup attempt.
Jim Jordan scored former President Trump's endorsement early this morning, which should come as no surprise. Here is Jordan in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, attending a Stop the Steal rally 2 days after Election Day. In the weeks and months after that, Jordan went on various right-wing media outlets where he attempted to sow distrust in the 2020 election and made baseless claims of election fraud. Jordan's name appears throughout the bipartisan report from the House Select Committee investigating January 6th. The report says that Jordan attended numerous post-election meetings with senior White House officials and Rudy Giuliani discussing how to challenge the election results.
Even if you put aside the attempted coup and stop the Steele rally, I think anyone who spends any time in a meeting with Rudy Giuliani should be automatically disqualified, unless that meeting is an AA meeting. Although, if you told Rudy to go to AA, I guarantee he showed up at an American Airlines flight with AA batteries. And that was today's joke about Rudy mixing up places and things.
America!
Even as Mike Pence, who, as you may recall, and better. Even Mike Pence, who, as you may recall, and as he maybe doesn't, almost got killed by the mob on January 6th, had decided to back Jim Jordan, despite the fact that Jordan was on the side of the mob and tried to sway Pence to overturn the election. A CNN anchor pointed that out in an interview with Pence, and his answer was predictably spineless.
Jim Jordan would be an outstanding Speaker of the House. The American people want to see the Republican conference come together, elect a Speaker, and get back to work.
Well, it's interesting to me to hear you say that Jim Jordan would be a great Speaker, given he was someone who sent a text to the Chief of Staff on January 5th that outlined for you to violate the Constitution and block the certification of the election. I mean, do you really believe that's someone who should be third in line to the presidency?
I have immense respect for Jim Jordan. He's a man of integrity, and I've known him for many years. I was not aware of his opinion going into January 6th.
So that doesn't bother you?
My interaction with Congressman Jordan in December was simply over the legitimate objections that members of Congress were permitted to file under the law.
Of all the people who fomented a violent mob intent on murdering me, there is none I consider a better man than Jim Jordan. It would be an honor to be murdered by him. Pence's problem is there are no other options. Here's a perfect example. Republican Congressman Dan Crenshaw made the case for Jim Jordan to CNN's Jake Tapper, who pointed out that unlike Crenshaw, Jordan pressured Pence to overturn the election, and Crenshaw basically said if that disqualified him, there wouldn't be anyone else.
I'm supporting Jordan. I'm going to vote for Jordan.
I mean, he defied the congressional subpoena and he was trying to get Pence to overturn the electoral votes. But anyway, you're in the Jordan camp.
But a lot of them did that. If I held that grudge, I wouldn't have friends in the Republican conference.
That's two-thirds of the conference.
So.
That's an excellent point.
I was on an island there.
Yeah, I hear you.
I love how they're both laughing off that deeply depressing fact, but it is a fact. There are very few Republicans who didn't try to overturn the 2020 election. At this point, being a Republican who thinks Biden won is like being a vegan zombie. Do you have anything other than brains? That is the core of the modern GOP. It's not a serious or competent party that can be trusted with the responsibility to govern. As far as anyone can tell, their only discernible position is that January 6th was good, and anyone involved in that, whether it's Jim Jordan or Donald Trump, should be in a position of leadership. Their pitch to the American people is elect us because we're a
bunch of idiots.
This has been A Closer Look.